The winter 2023 anime season has been pretty bad, which is a pretty big surprise as I don't think we've had a bad season of anime in years, but for some reason this season has just been terrible. There aren't any hidden gems coming out this season, and there's only one big mainstream anime coming out this season, carrying the entire thing on its back, and that's about it. The rest of this season is just generic power fantasy or generic rom-com, as well as one series that tried to be artistic and cool, but so far hasn't lived up to its potential. Not only do we have the problem of no good shows coming out, but it seems like the anime industry has finally hit a bottleneck and can't keep up with the demand anymore. We started to see the cracks with shows like 86 and Uncle from Another World getting massive delays, ruining their hype and pacing of the shows. But this season has taken it to a whole new level. I can't even count how many shows have gotten delayed for multiple weeks, if not indefinitely. But if I were to name a few, we have Bofuri, Kubo-san, and Demon King Academy, all shows with at least a moderate level of popularity. This has made the anime season feel like there is nothing worth checking out and has made it quite hard to get into a lot of these anime for this current season. This anime season, like all other anime seasons, had a lot of potential to be really good, but it just never lived up to expectations. I still think 2023 as a whole can be a good year for anime, but right now at the start of the year, it's just been pretty rough. On top of all the delays for this season, there have been a lot of sequels that have been really hyped up before coming out that have not really lived up to expectations, which is another big issue with a lot of shows this season. For some, it's just more of the same, and with others, things just aren't quite right with them. But with that being said, I do want to at least highlight a couple of anime this season that I think have done a really good job of carrying the entire season on their backs, especially with one series in particular that has really carried this season, which I think we all know what that series is, as well as some series that I think have had a lot of potential but never really lived up to it. However, before we do that, it would be awesome if you could leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. I make new anime, manga, and webtoon content every single week on a variety of different series and topics. Alright, let's just get this out of the way and immediately start talking about the one series carrying this entire season on its back. And yes, it is, as you probably already predicted, Vinland Saga Season 2. I don't think this really needs to be said, but this series is fucking incredible, and this season has been no exception to that. This is the one sequel series that was extremely hyped up that absolutely lived up to the expectations. I want to make a full-length video talking about this series in the future, so I will only go on to a brief few points here. However, I want to say this one series absolutely saved this season. Every single episode that releases is incredible and builds upon what was previously established in the series. The animation has only gotten better since the first season, and there isn't even that much action in this season compared to the first season. The art style shift as well to more sharp edges and darker tones makes this season feel like it is a low point for a lot of characters, and that this is going to be a season about rising up from this point. The music in this season also reflects this really well. Both the OP and ED are godlike. River and Without Love are unironically songs that I listen to all the time outside of the anime because they are actually that good. And then we have the rest of the soundtrack, which is perfect to set the tone of the season extremely well. It's honestly really impressive what MAPPA was able to pull off this season. It definitely makes you look forward to future seasons of this anime. Alright, the next anime I want to briefly talk about is an anime that I felt like had a lot of potential in the first episode or two, but then it just didn't really live up to it at all. And that anime is The Fire Hunter. This anime is an anime that tries to be a bit more than what it actually is. If you look at it, you can see that they are trying to make a more artistic spin on the original story through the medium of animation. But it just comes off as flat and uninteresting. A series that does this really well is the Heike story. They took a story and gave it a really unique art style and animation that enhanced the overall experience. But with this anime, it just feels like they couldn't quite execute on what made series like the Heike story so good. Although the art style is unique, the animation is oftentimes hitting yikes levels of bad. There are some good sequences in this anime, and in those sequences you can really see how this anime could have shined through if they had more of that, but sadly it just almost never does. However, that isn't even the worst of it. If it was just bad animation, I wouldn't really care so much. However, there is one major problem that I think holds this series back so much. If there is one thing that I hate more than a bad anime, it's a boring anime, and that is exactly what this series is. This series is split into two separate stories that will eventually converge somewhere towards the end of the series. However, only one of those stories is in any way interesting. The other side is just a massive exposition dump that is incredibly boring as nothing much really happens to the characters or anything. Both sides help to expand the world building of the series. One story shows us how the world is and how it functions, while the other just explains it. And sadly, almost none of the characters are interesting enough to pull this series up as well. I can count on one hand how many interesting characters there are in this series, all of which only come from one half of the story. This anime had a lot of potential, but it squashed it by spending too much time on world building and not enough time moving the plot along. Despite all the negativity towards this particular season of anime, there are still a couple of shows that I think are decent enough to hold down the fort for the next upcoming season. It just really surprised me that out of all the anime coming out this season, only one of them is actually amazing, and the others are either just okay or pretty good, or not amazing, and then of course just bad. Here's hoping that the rest of the year for anime will be a lot better and that we can get the best anime possible.